Hello, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships on what is a very nice, cool Saturday, October morning here in Norway. And of course, we have to do this in fjords because I live in Norway. But we are focusing on the Tier 8 British light cruiser, the Edinburgh. And today I'm going to go over the armor, the type of ship she is, upgrades, modules, commander skills, consumables. We'll go through the whole gambit of things. So the goal is to do this within 30 minutes or less. So, with that out of the way, what type of light cruiser is Edinburgh? Well, Edinburgh is a light cruiser that's not a brawling cruiser. She probably plays best at the mid-range. That's, for example, I'll use mid-range for example with Edinburgh being her concealment. Now, this is not the best concealment you can get. That's because I only have a 6-point commander on Edinburgh right now. I've played Edinburgh a lot. I already have Minotaur. I've moved my commanders around. It's been a long time since I've kind of revisited Edinburgh, and you saw the battle yesterday on the EU. This is on NA. But you can get the concealment down to 9.2. So playing typically, I would say the mid-range is for tier 8 and higher. I kind of define as like around 12 kilometers. And that's probably the best play style because you need a little more, you don't want to be too close, right? Because the armor scheme, which I'm going to talk about here in just a minute, but you can go ahead and begin to see it here. But the armor scheme doesn't favor you. You have a massive citadel. Easy, you can get wrecked. Citadels can happen from all different angles once you start looking at 2 or 3 millimeters and up, but hang in mind with that. We'll talk more about it. But she does have a radar, a 10-kilometer radar. You can play around that, right? You'd have a 0.8 kilometer gap between your radar and concealment, so it means you can stealth radar in the game. You have smoke, which is more what I play. I play smoke Edinburgh build. I don't feel comfortable running the radar Edinburgh build. Unless you're playing with division mates who can smoke you up, so on and so forth. You have to play off your friend's positioning, your team's positioning. You try to flank. So you're just looking for opportunities around key objective areas and utilizing Edinburgh. And she has one of the, I think the 5th shortest main battery range in the game at 15.4. So yeah, okay. So let's get into more on that armor scheme now as referencing. Okay, so you have a 16 millimeter fore-end plating and the aft end plating. So kind of like basically destroyer armor on your tier 8 cruiser here in World of Warships. It gets a little more thick, 19. And then you have 114 here beneath the smokestack. So maybe if you're a destroyer and you're trying to shoot in Edinburgh, you wouldn't want to aim right beneath the smokestack, so you'd want to aim beneath the bridge or the rear part of the superstructure as an example, or just go for the bow or stern. Superstructure, of course, is going to be the lightest of everything on here, 13 millimeter. And then once you start peeling that armor away, you see some interesting things here. So you see there's like a kind of a step there. And then we get down to the Citadel, which also has some very interesting things going on. You can see it's got thicker deck plating above the Citadel armor, that 76, 51, very light on top in the middle. So if you're like a CV with AP bombs, like, I don't know, Kiryu or German dive bomber, you're wanting to go for this area for sure. That's very weak, and you will easily clap in Edinburgh. And I'm not just, yes, this is about the Edinburgh, but when I say these things for players who are watching, targeting the weaknesses of Edinburgh, I'm also saying these so you as an Edinburgh player know what players might target you on. So players who are familiar with more of that weakness, okay? Then back to the 51 and then 76. Now your Citadel is just above waterline. It's not massive in the sense that she comes up high over the water, but just that it takes up the majority of your ship, right? When I zoom out, you can see it really stretches out because of how long your superstructure is here on this light cruiser and reaching your forward and rear main battery turrets. So do be mindful. It's very easy to get citadeled in this. A lot of ships in the game can citadel you, so you're going to want to play respectively. Now, the last thing we need to talk about is just the armor on your main battery. So typically your front is the strongest, so yes, here 102 millimeter to 51 on the top side and back. So not too much to get into there. Going over and looking at the modules. So you have no upgraded module for your guns, your main battery. You have a reload time of 7.5 seconds. Now, Wargaming has been playing, they played periodically nerfing the reload time on Edinburgh. It used to be slightly better. So it's 7.5 seconds now. Your turrets, you have 12 152mm guns. They have a 180-degree turn time of 25.7 seconds. So we'll talk about that, maybe look at improving that a little bit more. And then your maximum AP shell damage is 3,100. We'll talk about it, but Edinburgh, if you're newer to the game, it only has armor piercing. You do not have access to high explosive. Now, your hull upgrade, this is the first thing you're going to want to upgrade because it's going to improve your survivability, your AA defense, and maneuverability. So you're going to go from 31,800 hit points to 36,400 hit points. You also see your AA rating goes from 57 to what is now 66 when we look at Edinburgh here and here. And then you get a slight buff to your maneuverability, so you go up to 54. So it's helpful, right? And then probably what I'd recommend next going forward, if you're upgrading the modules, is gunfire control system, but we'll get there. Your torpedoes. So your stock torpedoes, really the main difference is their range, whether they're 8 kilometer or the upgraded ones, which are 10 kilometers. There's a slight difference in damage. You can see actually the stock torpedoes do plus 333 per torpedo damage more than the upgraded torpedoes. And these stock torpedoes are 1 knot slower than the upgraded torpedoes. So it only affects the reaction time by 0.1 second. Reaction time being how quick does the player see your torpedoes and then try to maneuver to avoid them. So I think it's like you go from 7.9 to 7.8, I think it is with the upgraded ones, just because you're slightly faster torpedoes. But having that 10 kilometer range means you can actually stealth torpedo with the Edinburgh, right? Max concealed 9.2, torpedoes 10 kilometer. They have a nice reload time of 72 seconds. Possible to look at upgrading those, but I don't know. We'll look at that and discuss some factors with it. 62 knots, and then you can see maximum damage goes down a little bit to 15,533. So this is the third thing you're going to want to upgrade. And then I say the second thing you're going to upgrade is the gunfire control system. So on top of already having, you have the top 5 worst main battery gun range in the game. Start off at 14 kilometers. And that's really brutal with Edinburgh, especially if you're facing tier 10s. So that video yesterday I put up, because I'm grinding up the Royal Light Cruiser line on the EU. I went ahead and I had a free XP gap, so I used free XP just to get the extended main battery range up to 15.4, which I'm incredibly thankful that I did. I don't normally always spend free XP on that EU account as I'm trying to save some more. But it's a real pain if you get stuck pitted against tier 10s and you only have a 14 kilometer gun range. So do upgrade that. It does help out with these 152 millimeter AP guns. Propulsion 80,000, horsepower 32.5 knots with 0 mic flag. We can add plus 5%, which is going to boost us up to 34.1. Probably helpful to have, especially as Edinburgh is, I would say maybe she's a cruiser who's being power crept in terms of speed in comparison to other destroyers. Well, not just destroyers, but cruisers mainly, but also you have battleships. More and more battleships can go even faster than this. So sometimes you're just not able to actually get away because the battleships are going faster than you. So I do recommend running Sarah Mike Flag. In terms of her upgrades, the first slot I have is the main armaments modification 1. This reduces the risk of your main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Your main battery and torpedo tube survivability goes up by plus 50%. Your main battery and torpedo tube repair time is reduced by negative 20%. So having both is quite helpful here on Edinburgh because of how lightly armored, right, these guns are. Now, when we talk about the torpedoes, which are right here, it's a 2x3, So 1 on each side, 3 torpedoes. They are kind of covered here, right? If I pull the armor back up, add some things back into the mix. They're a little bit covered here, but they can still be at risk of being knocked out. So for myself, I do like just having the main armaments modification 1, especially if I get in a certain situation where maybe I actually have to use torpedoes and a destroyer, cruiser, battleship player rushing me. So like that. In comparison, you know, your AA is not great. You'll do good against tier 6s, but you'll suck against tier 8s and definitely suck against tier 10s. Magazine modification. This reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating by negative 70%. You don't need to run this because if you're playing random, ranked, or for some reason clan battles with Edinburgh, you take Julie Charlie combat signal, which completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. These really don't apply here. We're not talking about that. The second slot, I would recommend the engine room protection. This reduces the risk of your engine and steering gears becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Engine and steering gear repair time, negative 20%. Now, if you really like playing Edinburgh, and you're going to be playing her a lot, then I would be looking at picking up Hydroacoustic Search Modification 1 myself. This extends the action time of the Hydroacoustic Search by plus 20%, so we'll talk about the Hydro when we get over to it here shortly. So that's what I would feel comfortable with running here on the Edinburgh if I'm going to play it a lot and invest in the special upgrade. Now, the Surveillance Radar Modification 1, I don't really recommend, again, a Radar Edinburgh build just because she doesn't have that same DPM output compared to Neptune or Minotaur, or as good as maneuverability. And there's just some things that are more in favor for Minotaur running a Radar Minnow, a Minotaur versus Radar Edinburgh. Okay, so, but maybe you're playing in a div with your buddies, your clanmates, and they're going to smoke you up with your American destroyers, and then you run that 10-kilometer tier 8 cruiser, right? And then you stomp on, if you get good matchmaking against tier 6s and 7s, then go for it, right? But that's just my opinion, so just letting you know. For the third slot, there's 2 options we can talk about here. The first I run is the Aiming Systems Mod 1. Now, as you go up the line, the 180-degree turret traverse time is much, much better. Like, Minnow, I think, is like 5.4 seconds. You know, here at Edinburgh, 25.7. And the reason I would more recommend this is because of your playstyle. You're playing more of those objective areas like caps, maybe playing a little more on the flank. I value that better accuracy that comes from the maximum main battery shell dispersion being reduced by negative 7%, meaning I'm getting tighter vertical and tighter horizontal maximum dispersion, so tighter shell groupings, okay? So I do like having that here on the Edinburgh. Now, you're not this kiter that's like constantly shifting sides and stuff, so then I feel it's okay to go without the main battery modification too. Now, I know some of you, it may drive you crazy. What I would say is try out both. If you are a player who does not like the fact that maybe you can outturn your turrets, then go ahead and pick up main battery mod 2. Okay, this video is just my opinion and it is my recommendations, but if you're on the fence, just try them out both. It's only 500,000 credits. It doesn't hurt too much if you've been playing the game for a bit, but maybe it's a lot at the start if you're a newer player, right? But I'd say Aiming Systems Mod 1. For the fourth slot, one of the things that's good about the Royal Light Cruiser line is you get built-in propulsion. So that's why you don't see prop mod listed here. So that's what I would be running if it was an option, but it's already built in to the cruiser. So then what do I recommend taking? I recommend the Steering Gears Mod 1. Reduces your rudder shift time by negative 20%. So when we look at the rudder shift time, it's 7.7 seconds. So it'd be closer to around 10 seconds, maybe a little over 10. Around 10 give or take without this. So I quite like it. There's no need to take the Damage Control System Mod 2. This would be something you see more battleships, battle cruisers. And then Depth Charge Mod 1, you get 2 more charges. So yeah, I don't really think that one's worth it either. So let's take that away and let's look at the fifth slot. Fifth slot, the Royal Cruiser line does really well in terms of concealment. Okay, Edinburgh is in the top 10 still for Tier 8 cruisers, both Tech Tree, Premium, Special, whatever ships. Tier 8 cruisers in the game, she's got among the best. I think she ties for, because she's got the same conceal. I think of Tiger, maybe it's Tiger 59 and Star Edinburgh, just copy paste of Edinburgh. So it's like, I think she's like ties, she's like 7.6, maybe 5. So it's really good concealment you have on Edinburgh. So definitely build into that strength that you have here on the ship, right? So because of having such good concealment, I was able to outspot other enemy ships because there was no destroyers or carriers around on my flank. Okay, so then you can take advantage of the matchmaking when at times that happens, but that's not common. But we were able to play into that strength because it did happen. Okay. Armament-wise, you have the armor-piercing shells only. 152mm guns that do that 3,100 maximum damage. Initial velocity, 841 meters a second. Maximum range, 15.4 kilometers. Now, it will be a little more difficult to land shells at range if you're playing that 15-kilometer range. But if you're playing around the 12-kilometer, right, your shells are connecting that much sooner. You don't have to lead as much. And enemy ships can't juke you as much when they are closer to you. Right? You can't juke a shotgun when it's pointed in your chest. Not that Edinburgh is a shotgun, but you get the point. So unfortunately, you don't have the high explosive here on Edinburgh. And that's why you have other strengths of the ship, like her concealment, like the fact you can get radar, like you get a specialized repair party, like propulsion's already built in. So some things Wargaming has done to kind of help balance that out a little bit. You have a little difficulty doing a lot of damage with these AP shells when targets are bow in. Even cruisers can, destroyers, can ricochet these guns if they are bow into you or utilizing their armor. You know, like kind of thinking of the French and Russian destroyers as an example. So broadside is where these shells excel the most, and you saw that in yesterday's video. Torpedoes, you have 2x3, 6 torpedoes total, 3 per side and 1 rack. They have reload time of 72 seconds. The upgraded ones, we have 10-kilometer range, 15,533 maximum damage. Torpedo speed, 62 knots. And then detectability range, 1.3 kilometers. When I was talking about that, these upgraded torps have a reaction time of about 7.8, 7.9 seconds if people don't have hydro up. The detectability range builds into that. So if it was like these torpedoes were 2-kilometer detection range, that would be like, oh my gosh, like 12, 13, 14 seconds perhaps reaction time. And then it'd be impossible to land these torpedoes at that point. But you can single launch these torpedoes, which is really nice to do on this line, especially as you go up to Neptune and Minotaur that get more torpedoes. Amazing stuff there. But you don't step into that full torpedo capability until you get to tier 9 and tier 10. But something to keep in mind of. Depth charges, maximum damage 5,000, so pretty hefty. Number of charges 2, bombs in a charge 3, so not many depth charges, not many bombs in a charge. So you're really gonna want to be able to drop the depth charges right on top of the sub. So do be mindful, right? So then you get 6 bombs in total between your 2 charges once you've activated and pressed the G key. So a little difficult, I would say, in Edinburgh to feel confident unless that submarine has come right into your spawn and you can drop depth charges right on top of him. But if you get an unfavorable situation and you're trying to deal with him while there's battleships and cruisers shooting at you, you're probably going to die if the submarine hasn't already shotgunned you. Alright, consumables. Let's get some coffee here. Damage control party. Standard for cruiser, 5 seconds. Action time, 60-second cooldown time. Nothing much to talk about there. Specialized repair teams. So, this restores a considerable amount of damage than a standard repair team. Okay, so this is specialized. So it's plus 728. I can throw on India Delta, which I do run here with Edinburgh, and plus 873. So if you get punished, you get caught out, you get surprised, you lose half your health, you know, or you're really close to death, you know, this kind of helps bring your ship back to life, if you will, because you're just able to heal so much as a tier 8 cruiser. So this is really special. Not I'm trying to think. Yeah, not many tier 8 cruisers in the game get access to the specialized repair teams. It's only a few. So this is one of Edinburgh's strengths. At Wargaming, the devs recognize that, and so they, instead of having a standard repair team, they're like, let's give her a specialized repair team. Okay, very good of them to do that. Consumable action time, 20 seconds. Cooldown time, 80 seconds. And you get 4 when you take in Superintendent. Otherwise, you only get 3 of these, 3 hydros, and 3 smokes. Hydroacoustic search. Detection torpedoes, 3.5 kilometers. Detection of ships, 5 kilometers. You're often utilizing your hydroacoustic search when you're playing Smoke Edinburgh. So when you've smoked up, you typically want to activate your hydroacoustic search if you know that there's a torpedo threat around or lingering. I've smoked up in my Minotaur and just been farming around the enemy, and then all of a sudden a submarine surfaces and completely shotguns me. I had no indication that he was there, wasn't detected beforehand, but I've kind of, if there's subs around and you're in a smoke, you're kind of an easy target because it's a false sense of security, of safety. So I lean more to trying to utilize hydroacoustic search when I'm in smoke screen. Okay. Now you can only spot submarines at maximum depth 2 kilometers away. Okay, at their surface, you'll spot them a little bit further. You spot them within that 5 kilometer, right? Consumable action time, 100 seconds. Now we can lengthen that with the Sierra Bravo. You can see here, plus 10% on the action time. So now we're looking at 110 seconds. And then that second slot, if you want to play Edinburgh a lot, or you're moving this up the line as you grind, as an example, I would say the Hydroacoustic Search Mod 1, action time plus 20%. So then you're going to be looking at 132 seconds. I think I'm doing the math right. It's don't take my word for it. All right, I can do it this way. We can make math easy for Flimsy. Plus 20%. Yeah, adding 20 seconds. Yeah, you'd be adding 120 seconds plus 10. You'd be 130. I think it's 132. We'll take it as is. So that's gonna help. When you can just add like 30 seconds on like that, right? So I do recommend that in the second slot if you're gonna be playing Edinburgh a lot. Cooldown time 2 minutes, 120 seconds, and we get 4 because we have survivability, or not, sorry, a superintendent on our commander. The 4th slot, you have a lot of things going on here. The typical one I'm going to recommend you to run here is the smoke generator. Action time 15 seconds, smoke screen dispersion time 99 seconds. We can lengthen the action time of the smoke, so we can throw that on. Now we're looking at 16.5. Okay, 1.5 second added. Smoke screen dispersion time 99 seconds, so not like the American destroyers. As an example, like get up to 2 minutes. Cooldown time 160 seconds, so you're going to want to use the smokes wisely. Like, don't just pop them just because you want to sit there and farm when the whole enemy flank is pushing you, right? You need to back off more, otherwise you're going to die brutally. Other one I'm going to recommend you run at times when maybe you're in a div or you're with your friends is the surveillance radar. 10 kilometer, really good for tier 8 cruiser. Versus I think the American light cruisers have 9 kilometer as an example. So that's really powerful, especially if you team play with your surveillance radar and you have people to cover you with smoke. I don't recommend spotting aircraft, nor do I recommend fighter. You just get so much more utilization out of the smoke generator. I'm not going to go in depth on that, but I'm just going to say that out loud. Other things I would run here with the Edinburgh, honestly this. If you're looking for bare minimal, I would say that just take away these two. If you have plenty to spare, then maybe you're running something like that. And your fire chance, I think that would only be for like I don't actually affects your secondaries. 6% chance. We can just throw it on for lulz and see. Yeah, 6.5. So, all right, let's get to that commander because we're getting closer to 30 minutes. Alright, so I'm going to show you what I would recommend for a 21-point build Edinburgh. It's different than what I run on Minotaur just because the ships play differently than one another. So let's talk about it. Okay, so for now, I said in the past, earlier in the video, I had a higher point commander on Edinburgh. Since I've moved him off, to greener pastures because I don't play Edinburgh a lot. I'm kind of tempted to play Cleveland a little bit more. Not saying Edinburgh is bad. She's an okay ship, even still in 2023. But that's just how the game and the nature of the beast is. So last stand. The ship remains partially able to sustain speed and maneuverability with the engine, steering gears incapacitated. Pretty important for a light cruiser, especially when I showed you how that armor, right, 16 millimeter on the stern. So it is possible to get your steering gears and engine knocked out. So you do really want to take last stand. For a 3-point commander, I recommend priority target, just because this is, you're kind of sailing around in like, I mean, there's maybe a couple other cruisers that are worse than Edinburgh in this way, but it almost kind of feels like you're sailing around in a glass hull. Very easy to shatter, very easy to penetrate, and explode and be dove struck, right? So I feel much more comfortable knowing who's aiming at me, how many people are aiming at me, and so I need to look, have map awareness, see the enemy's positioning, and then I angle, I go dark, whatever that means, right? So if this blooms up to 3, 4, 5, I know I made a mistake and I need to go dark, I need to disengage, I need to pop my smoke. So this is helpful, very beneficial. Also helps when destroyers are flashing you with their torpedoes, because this skill works, for example, if the destroyer is hunting you and he's switching between his main battery and his torpedoes, it'll be 1, you'll see in that circle, and then you'll just see detected. 1, detected. And that means he's switching between his torpedoes, because when he switches to his torpedoes, that goes away. So that gives you an indication he's torping now. Okay, use hydro or change your course positioning. Okay, that goes for all classes in the game, not just a cruiser commander skill oriented. For a 6-point commander, I recommend Superintendent. This gives you the 4 specialized repair teams, the 4 hydroacoustic searches, and the 4 smoke generators. Very helpful because you can heal a lot and you can burn through these smokes and hydros in the course of a randoms battle, as an example. 10-point commander. You can see here your detectability range by sea 9.2, by air 5.8, which is great because your AA defense is 5.8, and then by depths also 5.8. An assured detectability range 2 kilometers. So play into the strength of this. It's one of the best cruisers in the game, among the top 5, I believe, for best concealment. So play into that strength, okay? So really want to push and encourage you on that. A 13-point commander, I would take Adrenaline Rush. I've had a couple games when I was playing on Edinburgh. I'm like, oh, if my guns were just able to reload that little bit faster, I would have gotten that kill. Because as you lose health, this increases your reload time, or I should say decreases your reload time, by negative 0.2%. So that means your reload time can go from 7.5, 7.4, 7.3, 7.2, 7.1, just depending on how much health you've lost. That's how it works. And you can see here that maximum dispersion at 130 meters as well. Interesting, I didn't note that earlier. Also, your torpedoes can be loading faster, so 72-second torpedoes maybe become 70, 69, 68, 67. So that is kind of nice here. You do get a little bit of buff to your AA damage as you lose health, but again, this is a pretty poor... the WoW's wiki says that Edinburgh has a solid suite of AA. I completely disagree. You'll do good against tier 6 CVs, but you'll suck against tier 8 and tier 10 CVs, okay? So don't always buy into everything that you read in the WoW's wiki when they're talking about the pros and cons of a ship. After this, there's a few different ways you can go, so let's just talk about that. One of the things I might be interested in doing is taking radio location. So if you see that arrow next to the skill, and then you see the kind of like this, I don't know how you'd say, this kind of arc. Kind of, I don't know what to call it. It gives you an indication to the enemy ship closest to you. And then an enemy ship will say located, right? Or if someone's using this radio location, also known as RPF, radio position frequency, that they'll know that, oh, someone knows roughly where I am. It doesn't tell them exactly where you are, just that you're somewhere off to their 10 o'clock, like an example of this sailing this way and then having that arc. I guess that's the word I was going for earlier. So Probably helpful dealing with destroyers. You know, if you're running a smoke Edinburgh, if you're running radar Edinburgh, then that's kind of pointless skill. I'm not completely pointless, but you know, if something's spotting you, you just pop your radar with radar Edinburgh. But it's something I could see because I run smoke Edinburgh much more. After this, probably would be looking at survivability expert. So this was a 13, this is a 17 point, this was a 20 point commander. So your survivability goes up 36,400 to 40,000. Pretty nice to have. I mean, in terms of the other 3-point skills, I don't really see another one to take, or if I'm talking about a 4-point skill. I'll reference that here in just a minute, but I've already hit 30 minutes. I need to wrap this video up. And then I would go for the grease the gears. So remember our 180 degree turn time. It was 25.7. Now we've brought it down to 22.4. So this would probably be the 21-point build I would run on Edinburgh. Like I said, I have my Minotaur build different. Several different skills that I don't take here and swap them out for different skills because that ship plays differently. So if you're playing for a Minnow build commander and you're wondering what I run, I just want to tell you that in advance. This is my Minotaur build. So I actually don't take survivability expert. I don't take radio location because I run radar Minotaur. And there's some things I'm debating about switching around. When you have 16 torpedoes on Minotaur, so that's why I take filtered tubes. So if you're wondering, maybe you want to do something slightly different. I mean, you could do this here on Edinburgh. You can get your torpedoes reload down to 64.8 seconds. But again, you only get 3. So then I don't feel so comfortable to recommend that to you. Where this would be a 21-point build, I'd feel very comfortable running here on my Edinburgh. So that's going to bring the video to a close. If you have questions about a skill I didn't cover, let me know down in the comments. If you already have Edinburgh, let me know what you run on your commander, what you run on your ship, and how you just like the ship in general. And yeah, that's going to bring the video to a close. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you ever subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Take care.